Oh, this is Joshua Harris.
Oh man, I
Calling.
I was just thinking. I've said it would be horrible if this is my interviewee. How's it going, Josh? How's it going?
I'm doing good.
Good. Hey
I'm
man,
doing
listen.
well.
Let me pause and walk it back and introduce you properly, man. And maybe we'll talk about your campaign. That'll walk me back. We've been talking about this audio that just came out of the NYPD showing the level of racial profiling that takes place, and it just kind of took me over the top. But ladies and gentlemen, I've been joined by Joshua Harris. He is a candidate for mayor he's a Green Party candidate in the city of Baltimore. I've heard so many good things about the Green Party in Baltimore that I had to get their candidate online to speak with them. And so, Joshua, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for calling in. Tell everybody a little bit about yourself and your campaign.
Well, thank you so much for having me on the show. I really appreciate the opportunity. Again, yes, I'm a candidate for mayor in Baltimore City, and I think the entire world is watching Baltimore after what we saw, what happened last spring, and the uprising, and the media saying that Baltimore was burning and on fire. Every major outlet, news media saying such. But the reality is that Baltimore was on fire a long time before last spring. We suffered from decades of failed leadership, failed administration, suffer from one of the greatest wealth disparities in the country. We also know that Baltimore City is a place where isolated poverty, segregation, and redlining was literally invented. And so understanding the systematic implications that have created the conditions that caused what we saw last spring, which, of course, is poverty, and I'm sure we'll get into talking some of that. So my campaign is really about addressing those issues and bringing solutions to address them, about building wealth in the community and shifting power and opportunity to the citizens and the neighborhoods in Baltimore City that need it most. So that's really what my campaign is about, and that's what we're looking to do. This is about creating a social and political revolution, if you will. For far too long, we've allowed the conditions to go on and allowed our leadership to just do the same old. And so with the world watching us and more people paying attention to politics than ever before right now, we have an opportunity to really create that political and social change and that revolution in Baltimore City. So that's what we're looking to do. And I was attracted to the Green Party because in Baltimore, it's a party that's been very outspoken about racial justice, social justice overall, economic justice, and environmental justice, all three things that are near and dear to my heart, as well as grassroots democracy, and bringing people into the process and understanding how government works. So that's kind of where we're at. We're working towards the general election. And that's what we're doing.
Awesome. So let's unpack a lot of what you said. You've said a lot. You've hit on some things that are near and dear to my heart. The intersection between economic justice and racial justice, social justice, those three pillars. Tell me more about your approach and what distinguishes your approach as a Green Party candidate from that of, let's say, the Democratic Party candidate, because of the assumption that the Democratic Party would be the party for social and economic justice.
I mean, I guess that could be the assumption, but when you really take a look at, particularly here in Baltimore, and I mean, even nationally, when you look at outside of Bernie Sanders, who's talking about true progressive policy change to really address the issues. And so there's several differences. For me, I want to point out this important factor, because all too often what you'll hear as we have these conversations right now around police reform and state-sanctioned killings of unarmed Black and brown people in this country, what you often hear is about the Black-on-Black violence in the communities. That's the immediate rebuttal, which is one, a non sequitur argument. But then two, understanding the importance of addressing economic injustice and understanding the direct connection between a young African-American male being killed in his own neighborhood, either by the police or by his peers, and knowing that in Baltimore City, in most cases, the neighborhood that he lived in or grew up in, he attended a school that didn't have heat in the wintertime. He attended a school where he could not drink the water because it runs through lead pipes. He attended a school that did not have air conditioning in the summertime, and lived in a neighborhood that was void of resources, recreation centers, and most likely had crumbling infrastructure because the established leadership, elected leadership, continuously sacrificed that community and gave money to major developers and corporations at the expense of his neighborhood. And so understanding direct connections for what creates the economic connection to what creates the conditions for young African-American men to be in these neighborhoods in the first place and be cut off from access and opportunity to grow beyond what their conditions are. It's extremely important. And so for me, it comes back to follow the money trail. And my campaign just a few weeks ago released the first phase of our platform called Banking for Baltimore Undivided, and this first part is the economic development portion. It's a 21-page comprehensive economic development plan that's built on addressing issues of social justice and creating wealth in communities that have historically been ignored or void of wealth and resources.
Yeah, let's unpack that a little more, man, because you're, you know, people dismiss that intersection between the violence. I mean, you literally just hit on something that I've been just kind of ruminating in my head for a while, that we can both address the black on black crime as well as the police violence towards black people if we address the economic aspect of it, right? Because the reason that there is so much crime is an economic phenomenon. And in high poverty neighborhoods, you are always going to see high crime rates. But this is something that is casually dismissed by people who would otherwise call us allies, people who otherwise want our vote. So I'm really curious in terms of how you would communicate this to people who have for almost a generation just dismissed the need to address the economic factors, poverty, which leads to crime, as well as using that for racial justice, because that can also address the police officers' abuse of black people. What are you saying to the constituents? How are they receiving it? And is your message resonating?
Well, absolutely. It's an education component, and I think that's a really big factor of getting people to understand not only that the problem exists, but how do we address the problem. And so in my platform, and what we're doing is we're pushing progressive solutions to really address the wealth gap and the economic disparity, to not just create wealth for communities of color in Baltimore City that have historically been cut off from access, even with leadership that looks like them, knowing that there's systems that were put in place beyond that leadership. And so now looking at policy to really dismantle and break down those systems to create an equal playing field. And so the title of my platform is Banking for Baltimore Undivided, and the staple of it is what we call public banking.
Yep.
So knowing that the direct connection to Wall Street's grip on us, what we hear talked about on a national level, also has implications locally. Knowing that in Baltimore we have municipal bonds that we've taken out that we're paying upwards of 15, 17, and 19% interest on, and who reaps the burden for that in high property taxes and being nickel and dime through fees and all sorts of other fines is the citizens. And so if we take our money, which is now a $3 billion operating budget, sitting in the bank, and that bank is using it to create wealth for its investors and for its executives, while the city sees little to no return on investment, on those investments, right? So if we take our $3 billion operating budget, or just starting with our $90 million rainy day fund, and we put it in an account and open up our own Baltimore City public bank, how we could leverage that to make investment and create wealth for the city, where we could in turn do things with the interest that we would gain, because we're not dealing with Wall Street anymore. We're controlling our own economic destiny. We could take the interest that we accrue, and we know that Baltimore City is a city that has 40,000 city-owned vacants. 40,000 city-owned vacants, and you can purchase one for between $2,000 and $5,000, and you can rehab it for between $50,000 and $80,000 and have a brand new home. But a traditional bank won't give you.
I got to come to Baltimore. I'm sorry. I can pick up a vacancy for how much?
You can pick up a vacant. I mean, it's going to be a shell, and you're going to have to rehabilitate. But you can pick up a shell pretty well between $2,000 and $5,000 in the city. You can buy an entire block for $100,000 right now in Baltimore City. That's just unfortunate that the conditions have gotten to this point because it's been neglected this long. But that's just a reality.
Let me jump in there because I want to ask a follow-up question real quick, because this is important. I got to put my capitalist side, my capitalism side just came out. Let me put that to the side. The most important question I want to ask about this is if you do your plan and you're gaining that interest for the city, how do you institutionalize that the benefit from that interest goes to the city, not just the city, but the most needy in the city, to reverse the poverty instead of letting that wealth just amass to the top 1% of Baltimore?
Absolutely. And so that's the key, and that's the priority of first setting the mission and vision. But what we can do, as I was explaining, is we can give home loans to people who can't get them from a traditional bank because they're too small, and the bank doesn't want to give you a loan that small, right? They'd rather give out a larger loan. We give them now to individuals who may have the $5,000 to purchase the home, but wouldn't be able to get a loan for the $50,000 to rehab it, right? We can now not only give them that loan, but we can give it to them at an even lesser interest rate because it's the Baltimore City Public Bank, which isn't driven by profit. So any interest that we make is a benefit for the city as a whole, right? So we could do things like give out small business loans to entrepreneurs who are interested in starting up but don't need more than $5,000 to $10,000 to get their business off the ground. And again, a traditional bank won't give them loans that small. And so also, before we do that, though, we would have the citizens who would come together and set the mission and vision of the bank. They would set the mission and vision of the bank, and it will be up to the city council to make sure that mission and vision is being adhered to. But we would hire banking professionals, community banking professionals, to manage the daily operations of it, to ensure. So if the city citizens decide that we want the interest to go towards education and fixing our infrastructure in our schools, and that's where the interest earned goes to. If they decide they want the interest to go towards rehabbing the 40,000 vacants that the city owns, and that's where it goes to. If they decide that they want the interest to go towards creating new jobs and incubators and startups, then it would go to the Mayor's Office of Employment and Development to really work on that. And so we can do with the interest whatever the citizens decide is needed. And further on in my platform, we go into what we call participatory budgeting. So allowing each city council district to really be allotted their own budget to do the developments that the citizens in that district see necessary. Not let the mayor or some outside developer come in and say, I want to do this here because it's strictly driven by profit, but based on what that community really needs at the time. So it's really, again, about shifting the power and decision-making process away from the bureaucracy of City Hall and corporate entities and into the power and into the hands of the people in neighborhoods that need it most again. And that's really how we maintain that, to ensure that it's an equitable process. And we have things in place to really look at the policies and the practices that we have. There's the 10 questions for equitable, racially equitable policy and legislation that was released by Associated Black Charities. They did a study, and there's questions that you go through to look at policy to evaluate it through an equity lens. And so those are the sorts of things we would definitely be looking to do throughout this process, because this isn't about making the wealthy even more wealthy. We've seen enough of that in this country. This is about providing opportunities for people who've been cut off from them to build wealth in their neighborhoods, in their communities, and for their families.
Well, let's drill down a little bit more. And I'm sorry, let me not use that phrase. I've used it 3 times already. Let's go a little deeper on this. So I hear how some of your economic plans will benefit the middle class, obviously some entrepreneurs, some startups, people who probably have decent enough credit scores to get loans. But let's go to that neighborhood that is completely eviscerated. They don't have any plans, any businesses. They don't have any credit. They don't have anything. All they have is a rap sheet. How would those benefits go all the way down there?
No, absolutely. That's a great question. It's something that I'm touched directly because I'm on the ground in the community. We're running a grassroots campaign. There's no Air Force here. We're strictly infantry. And we're on the ground every day in the communities. In Sandtown, Winchester, where we saw took place last spring around Freddie Gray. That's where I'm at. And having conversations with returning citizens and understanding, too, that we talk about crime in Baltimore City, which is an issue, but what we don't talk about is that it is a symptom of a greater issue of poverty. And so really addressing that poverty through creating those opportunities. And so, again, I believe, too, that we have an opportunity in Baltimore to create hundreds of thousands of jobs. Baltimore City is a blue-collar town that has been without blue-collar work since Bethlehem Steel left 40 years ago. And so knowing that, I believe we need to create a new industry in Baltimore City, and I believe that industry is clean energy manufacturing and production.
Okay.
We know that in California, who's feeling the direct effects of climate change, that they have created 300,000 jobs moving towards clean energy, moving towards sustainable living. We can do the exact same thing and have the space, the warehouses for production and light manufacturing, and we have the bodies to put to work, the labor force, to do the work if we're proactive and take the steps. We also know that the federal government is about to spend more on clean energy in the next 4 years than they spent in the last 40. And so knowing that if we're proactive and we take those steps, we can begin to train and prepare a workforce for that work and for those opportunities, work that you don't need a college degree for, work that you go through trades or career and technical education, as you say, now, CTE training. And so those are the things that I'm advocating for. And the city has the funding to help support that training. There's a model actually called Summit Academy OIC out of Minneapolis that has done great work doing this and training people from low-income backgrounds and from communities of color in particular to get them into the trades. We know that the trades have been historically difficult for people of color to break into, and they've done that and have shown a model that's been successful to do that work. And when you talk to ex-offenders, they just want an opportunity. They want some training. They want to be able to provide for their family. And so what we have to do, too, is recognize that in this, 75% of felony crimes are committed by individuals who've had prior interaction with the law. So what that says to me is that if we want to have an immediate impact on crime reduction, we have to focus on preventing offenders from reoffending. So as soon as they get out, we have to get them into programs and get them working so that we break the cycle of individuals getting in trouble, going to jail, getting out of jail. Now because they have a record, they can't get a job, so they go back to the streets and then going back to the jail. We have to break that cycle by ensuring we're focusing on immediate attention on making sure that they are getting job opportunities, living wage job opportunities. And the clean energy industry will provide just that. And so that's really what I'm looking to do. I flew halfway across the world to Masdar in United Arab Emirates, which is the world's first sustainably green city built from the ground up. It's an entire city that's powered by solar and wind energy and heated and cooled by geothermal technology. So while advancing technology, also reducing carbon footprint is key, and it's something that we hear talk about and that we know is necessary. And so when we look at what we've seen in the past of creating new economies, what we've done once before by creating the interstate highways, we can do the exact same thing with clean energy and put hundreds of thousands of people to work.
I love what you said, man. To really use use people who are first-time offenders or just having an encounter with the police, using the system, identify those people, have some type of rehabilitation so that you can reduce recidivism. I think that's something that we have just completely thrown away in America. It's just everywhere in America. We are no longer focusing on how we can get those people who have encountered the law and keep them from ever getting back into it. Joshua, you said a whole lot, some things that I'm going to follow up with you on offline. I can't imagine just listening to you talk. I really don't imagine that they want to see you on a debate stage. I don't think they really want to debate you. But when are you guys going to have a debate, and if so, when?
So right now I did receive a letter with having a debate, and in order to be able to participate in a debate, I have to be polling at 15%. So that's where viewers and listeners come in. If they'd like to see me be able to participate in this debate, I have to reach voters, and that means that I have to raise money to be able to do that, to touch voters directly. And so that's what we're doing right now. We're trying to raise money. We're out knocking doors and doing what we can. This is a real grassroots movement. So even if someone can only contribute $2, it counts and it goes a long way. And so my website is harrisforbaltimore.com. And I'm out working. My social media is Harris for Baltimore on Facebook, Harris for Be More on Twitter, Harris for Be More on Instagram. And so I'm not difficult to reach at all. So anyone who's really interested in seeing Baltimore move forward, or is interested in seeing other predominantly African American cities that are in similar situations around the country move forward and progress, Baltimore is a representation of that. Well, the agenda that I'm putting forward is not just an agenda for Baltimore, but it's a 21st century urban agenda for communities of color to really build wealth and power.
Yeah. Look, man, I'm going to try to suppress my capitalistic side because it's there. But I mean, I might come to Baltimore, buy up a block, rehabilitate that thing, and make it something nice for my people, man. So I love that you are focusing on economic change, right, and economic revolution, and you're actually you have some concrete plans, right. I could have kept going and seeing how far your plans go, but I think my audience has heard enough. I know I've heard enough to know that you have some concrete plans and you have some really meaningful ways of implementing them, not just for the middle class and the wealthy, but even for those who have been marginalized their entire lives. So Joshua, thank you so much. I think everyone heard how they can get up with you. And so I want to bring you back. Let us know what we can do. Hit us up on Twitter. Anything we can do to support your campaign, we will do that.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity. Again, I really appreciate it. I look forward to talking again.
My pleasure. All right, folks, that was Joshua Harris, candidate for mayor. Dynamic young man. I want to see this brother debate. If nothing else, I think we should be able to push somebody, let's spread the word, help him get to the debate, because I really like what he had to say.